Hi, everyone. My name's Caroline. I have Jean here with me today. I have personally been a nurse for the past 8 years, and in a previous role, I was a clinical informaticist. And so I am just personally really excited to be interviewing Jean Ross today. I am the ISNA chair of the Social Media Committee, and I would love to introduce Jean here and have her share a little bit about herself.
Okay, well, I thank you so much. And I am a wannabe informaticist. So, Caroline, this interview might be turning out back to you more than me because I have so many questions because appreciate this nursing specialty that I had no idea of. And I also love that ISNA has the social chair because we need to be talking about what nurses are doing and the power that we have. But I've been a nurse for 15 years and it's weird to calculate, but I've been more on the entrepreneur and innovation side than bedside. So I was in critical care and then really just became obsessed with transitions of care, especially I was a cardiovascular critical care nurse. So I started my first business trying to start a nurse-led care coordination model. And actually it is still going today, thanks to another nurse, Ashley Oakes, who took that on and kept the work going. Because at that moment, I saw a bigger problem that I thought I could solve. And that's what led to me to go and dapple in informatics. But I co-founded with my neighbor, Jim McIntosh, and we established Primary Record in 2020.
Well, thanks so much, Jean. All right, let's roll into this
Yeah.
conversation. As you, both a nurse and a tech founder, what inspired you to build a patient facing innovation like Primary Record?
It it was obvious to me what was needed as a nurse, just from my time in critical care and talking to families at the bedside, but even more so when I left kind of that hospital setting and went out into the community. And I realized when a family or a patient is in the home, how overwhelming it really is, right? So in critical care, I'd be like, how do they not know their medications? Well, when you are this person helping another person in their home, you start realizing, oh my gosh, look at all these portals. Look at all these things that you're hearing at every appointment. And these families were showing, when we go like interview them, they were just showing us their binders. The really advanced ones had Google Drives and like weird mapped, Excel sheets. And I realized like, oh, there's something families need. And so, we worked, me and my co-founder bootstrapped this for 3 years and we worked directly with families. I had like a whole show me your binder initiative. And we built first a patient facing, I always like to say we're like your family EHR because I think that's what's needed is we're going to need a family EHR that can interface with all the other EHRs. And so that's what we started with. And then we kind of started with the patient and family. And now we're going outside in that community to understand where else can we serve that patient-facing solution can serve the community.
I think that's so cool that you found this need while you were working at the bedside that not only supported the patients directly, but also the families and the healthcare team from
The
also
nurses.
saving them a headache too about going into these other platforms and trying to find information. I think that's really cool of you as a nurse and just kind of shows how creative we can be to find
Well, and you,
solutions.
yeah, because I always love people that are like, oh, these electronic health records, they share data. I'm like, let's rewind it back. How does that data even get into a system? Someone is typing it in, and I know we're going to tap on AI, or we're going to be counting on someone else to help us type it in. So um, it starts with nurses, and then who partners and has to validate that information constantly is those families and the patients. Nurses are constantly interviewing families. What meds are you taking? Did you have the surgery in 2022? And it's amazing to see what nurses and patients and families are fixing for that data to be good.
So you mentioned AI. So let's explore that for a little bit. Because it's a hot topic right now and it's really
Yeah.
going to impact healthcare. Tell me in the simplest words, what is AI?
The simplest way I can explain AI to nurses is look at AI, it's a tool. All right, let's just call that out. It's like a tool, just like any other device or machine that you've been given as a nurse. AI is a tool. But to really and I know nurses want to understand things. And so my way I explain AI is like, that, like, I remember being a new nurse And I just remember this, like, 22-year-old, 22 veteran ICU nurse, like walking by my room, and she's like pauses and just looks at my room. She's looking at the monitor, the patient, what I'm doing. And she's like, and within seconds, telling me this next step I need to do. And why is that? Because she has 22 years of working in a room and seeing the patterns. And that is what AI is doing. It can synthesize all of this data and the patterns and pick up on the patterns of it and the relations of words and help us quickly uncover things that sometimes would take us hours or days. So that to me is AI is like that. Think of that nurse that we all know in our life that you're just amazed and you're all like going to be sad when she leaves. That's what AI is.
I like that. I've never heard of AI being described that way, but immediately I already knew who I was thinking of.
Yeah, it was like pattern recognition, right? Like
Yes.
That's so much of what nursing is. And that's what you just get. That's why you become, you get this basic nursing education. You have to go work because it is those patterns where you become essential in the healthcare system. And so, a lot of people are like, oh, but is AI going to replace nurses? No, we'll get into that.
Okay, so first let's go back to primary record again and connecting that with AI. So what problem does primary record solve? And then how does AI fit in?
So primary record, what we do is, and why we can even do it is because of a new law called the 21st Century Cures Act. And that's why I founded this, because I saw this future, because everywhere we're going, we're getting handed patient portals and we're just handing data to families and patients without really too much guidance on how to understand it or what to do with it. And so what primary record is doing and thinking in terms really of that larger context around the patient, the family, and the support system is we're trying to help bring that information in one place so that they can use it for coordinating their care, explaining it to that next provider, or explaining it to this new provider or new home care nurse that's coming in. And so, again, quickly synthesizing their entire health record and history and things that have been changing to quickly relay that information to that next person. So being able to put data in one place was a huge aha for us. We didn't start off with AI when we started primary record. We put it in, and that's when I really saw the power of it to help our families understand it and use it to really understand how to take care of each other in the community.
Okay. What advice do you have for nurses in the role of AI in innovation? And speaking of you as a tech founder and innovator using AI, what kind of advice might you give?
I think there's just so many different camps of people. There's people that are super scared of it, people that are scared that's going to replace their job, people that don't trust it, and then a lot of other people that just totally embrace it and want the whole world to be run by AI. So for nurses, I just want nurses, when you're thinking of AI, I want nurses to be involved in all the processes happening today, and there's a lot of them at the policy level, state and federal level. In your own hospital, there is probably an AI committee, and I don't know if there's nurses on it. So I guess my challenge to everyone is making sure that nurses are at the table, because if these tools are based a lot on patterns and they're getting told that they're going to solve this problem in our healthcare system or for our patient, that really needs to be evaluated by nurses who are the original AI tool. We
Most
are
definitely.
the pattern recognition, right?
Yes.
And if you need another carrot for anyone listening to this of why you should be involving nurses, is your nurses are going to have to use this. So you better get them involved quickly on that workflow and getting the validation that you need before you make a big purchase for wherever you're working. So we're the largest workforce. Like, why wouldn't you involve us? So definitely.
So perfect lead to my next question for you is really, how do you imagine the role of bedside nursing changing because of AI?
The change that we're going to see is hopefully a lot of that administrative burden that nurses are feeling. That's my hope for AI. I think that's where there's a lot of utility. I remember being in the ICU in 2012, and I was always kind of a techie kind of person. I remember like waving, my suction around to the nurses around me and saying, "Can you imagine a day where I just get to like talk out loud and say vital signs, whatever? What do you think of that?" And just have this like ongoing conversation. And all the nurses made fun of me. And here it is. Here is our chance to have an extension of ourselves, to have tools to help us quickly get this information into the system so that it can be processed and we can get more understanding of where that patient is in their journey, keeping us updated. I mean, I think about just so much time that is wasted, and nurses are holding it together because we are the tool today. So where can we start inserting that and that bedside flow so that what bedside nursing looks like is back to the hands-on care of the reason we all signed up to be nurses. That's what I hope AI.
Yeah, and that's such a common issue or complaint and burden that nurses carry at the bedside, is that administrative burden where I want to be spending more time with my patient, talking with them, that human and emotional aspect, but there's parts of the job that I have to do. I have to chart and I have to add in all of this documentation, and that takes away from the time that I can be a human with my patient at the bedside.
And and all that we've done to just like, I've touched every vertical of healthcare, and I constantly see, because we have a nursing shortage, and I am seeing wasteful ways we're using nurses. Mm-hmm. Nurses, if anything, if there was a role for us to play, is to speak up about these opportunities with these different AI companies. I think there's problems that we could be solving at that nursing level that would just really elevate care, as well as start taking this time off of us.
Yeah. So you spoke a little bit earlier about some of the natural fear that us as nurses may have about AI, but let's focus on the patient here a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
So when a patient may express some fear or distrust about the use of AI being used in their care, what or how can the nurse respond to help build that trust in that care and help ensure that the patient is receiving the best care possible?
That is such a great question. I think this is where I think any use of AI should always be offering an opt-out for our patients. Okay. And but I think it'd be the nurse's role to educate what that might detrimentally do to their care. Okay. Because AI is a tool that is helping us, and we can then do what nurses do best, is they say this fear or they don't want this, but nurses can get to that next level of, tell me about this fear. What are you worried about? Mm-hmm. And we really should be collecting those stories as nurses to help then educate what's then that next step we can do, rather than letting that patient just opt out. But what are those things that they just want the transparency to? They want to see maybe it's just as simple as they just want to see an AI label, or they want to know, so I think there's ideas that we need to be, as nurses, advocating for our patients, and by listening to them and asking questions in the way that nurses know how, to get to that, I'm in pain, or I don't want this, and we have to the nurse, you just have to okay, tell me about that and what's really underneath that fear, and I think that's our role, is to make sure that patients are educated and they can. And I think if nurses start showing, because if AI can be a tool that really helps us, I think the nurses educating how this helps me take care of you would eventually make a lot of that fear go away.
So even more of a reason, after hearing that, even more of a reason for nurses to be involved in the 100%. Conversation and to really understand how AI is being utilized so that we can then properly educate our patients.
100%, because I've had to do this, because my engineers are the one that put AI, right? And then I had to understand how it works. And I had to then report, hey, I asked the question this way and it's not getting it. Well, they just need to ask it different. I'm like, well, but this is how a patient is going to ask the question. Yeah. So how are we going to then how do we then relook at our AI and how we're retrieving information, or the temperature? Like, there is more geeky things, but lean on our wonderful nurse informaticists that are in this space to then help us understand what are the things we need to be advocating for to make sure that those responses, and definitely if nurses are interested in this, I'm like, what could I be doing? Do I need a certification? I'm like, no, you don't need a certification. Just start using AI.
Yeah.
But if you had to learn one thing, I would start learning AI prompting. Just start Googling that, because AI is so much, the value of it is in so much more of how you ask the question, and then having that clinical knowledge and background to evaluate the answer. And that is a strength of nursing with AI.
Okay, so wrapping up this really wonderful conversation, and thank you so much again, but I really want to know, what is your hope for the next generation of nurses entering this AI era?
I do through ISNA, so I am a longtime member. I get the honor of going into our nursing schools to talk about ISNA and advocacy and innovation. And I'm always blown away by the class. They just seem so ready to not put up with, the reason they became a nurse was to care for patients. And the more that they are taken away from the patient and caring, the more they're going to question it. So I love it. So please, if I had to say to the future nurse, like, keep fighting to stay in nursing and to do the things of what made you become a nurse, to take care of your patients. And every time you're handed something that's taking away from that patient care, question it. Point to the technology, go demo it, find it yourself and show your manager. Like, there are tools out there. We just have to be proving to them the value of it.
Well, Jean, I just can't thank you enough for sharing your expertise with ISNA and just continuing to support us and all nurses in Indiana. So thank you very much.
No, and thank you to my nursing network. It's real. Please tap into it. Anyone that's trying to do anything, it's what keeps me going, as hearing from my nurses and the problems they're trying to solve in their community.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.